How we doing, everyone? How we doing? Today is Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020. And I'm going to do a little presentation on buying a real estate note, the process of buying a real estate note. This is for the meetup group, Generational Wealth Building Meetup Group. And I'm just going to go through the process of buying a real estate note. Um, I'll wait a couple minutes, try to see if people jump on, but that's what we're going to do. It's pretty simple. It's not a complex process, um, but there are a few steps that we need to be aware of. I'm just going to share my screen here. And let's see. There we go. Steps to buying a real estate note. If you do have any questions, you can type them in the chat. And we'll answer them probably towards the end once the presentation is over. So, write down your questions and put them in the chat, and I'll get to them as soon as I'm done. So, like I said, this is about steps to buying a real estate note. The first thing that you want to do is have some type of investment criteria. On here, what I do is investor profile, so to speak. Trying to see what type of property value you want to stay in regards to how much money you want to spend. Your investment to value ratio, you want to keep that at a certain percentage just depending on what type of note that you buy. Usually for non-performing notes, you probably want to be somewhere between 30 cents to 50 cents on the dollar for non-performing. For a performing note, you probably are gonna, be good at between 70 to, maybe 90, 95%, just depending on your experience level and your investment tolerance level. Obviously the asset is performing, so somebody is making you payments, so you can go a little bit higher on investment to value ratios with performing notes. How much capital do you have to invest? And that kind of goes along with the property value. Usually if you have, let's say $25,000, you're probably going to be buying some type of notes, either performing or non-performing, less than $100,000 value. Obviously if you have more money, you can increase what type of properties you're looking at. So you really have to know how much um, do I want to invest? And then a certain portion of the investment, you have to maybe put aside towards things that you have to pay, getting a BPO. What else would you possibly need? Probably if it's a non-performing, you may want to set some money aside for cash for keys or a deed to get a deed in lieu. Also, if it's non-performing, you may have to go through the foreclosure process. So you do have to look at certain expenses depending on the type of note that you buy and what will come along with that outside of purchasing a note. Sometimes it's very little expenses. You may just need, like I said, for a performing note, maybe you just want to confirm what the value is of the property and you just do a BPO. Other times you may want to you have to run an updated title search. Maybe the last title search that you received is from 2, 3, 4 years ago, and you want something updated. Maybe it's just outside of a year and you can just maybe get it refreshed. That may cost you 75, $100. So you just have to know how much you want to spend, and a certain portion of that, depending on the type of note that you buy, will be set aside for expenses outside of when you buy the note. What particular states are you looking at? I mean, you have judicial versus non-judicial. A lot of times people getting in to the note business want to stay in the Non-judicial states, just because if they do have to take the property back for whatever reason, the foreclosure times are um, a lot less. You can maybe take a property back from anywhere from 90 to 100 to 180 days in a non-judicial state. In judicial states, obviously, that could take up to 18 months, 2 years. I'm in New Jersey. We've seen people be in foreclosure for 4 or 5 years. You want to think about what states do you want to be in. Are you looking for a vacant property or owner occupied? Obviously, if you're getting it vacant, you're thinking about possibly taking the property back and then renting it or doing seller financing or some other type of strategy once you get, once you get the property back. Um, you want to own an occupant, that's probably more of a performing situation. So if somebody's in there um, and they're probably paying, it could be owner occupied and it could be non-performing. So there is a process to have to get that person out. So you may say, if I buy a non-performing note, I just want to make sure that the property is vacant. Again, that's what maybe some of those expenses are. You send somebody out to the property. You have companies that at least, kind of look through the window, see if anybody's living there, take some photos for you and stuff like that. So you want to know that as well. Is there any particular property type that you want to avoid? If you're new getting into it, you may want to not do any land at first. You may want to do notes on actual real property. Then as you learn more and get more experience, you may want to go over into, land type notes and things of that nature. Do you prefer urban or rural? Again, starting out, you may want to, stay more in the urban, suburban areas as opposed to rural until you get a few purchases under your belt and feel a little bit more comfortable. How much property renovations are you willing to face when you're buying a note? Again, that's part of the due diligence period. You send someone out to go and, see what the condition is. I mean, you may get some initial photos based on like Google Maps and things of that nature, but sometimes that's from 2, 3, 4 years ago, and you want to get a better sense of, what a property is looking like now. And a lot of times the exterior of the property will give you a good indication on what the interior is, at least from my experience. So if there's some things that need to be done on the outside, you can say, there's probably going to be, some maintenance that needs to be done on the inside. If it looks really bad on the outside, it's probably really bad on the inside. And, of course, if they are keeping up the property, then most likely the interior is going to be in good shape. Are you concerned with the foreclosure timeframe like we talked about? How much is that a concern? If you're buying something using an IRA, that may not be a big issue because you know that this property is specifically for your IRA, which you may not be ready to retire for another 5, 10 years. So if you get it for a non-performing note that takes 2, 3 years to foreclose, you don't mind it because you know that once you take the property back, it is, like I said, going to be for your 401k or retirement plan. And then at that particular time, once you get it back and you sell it, then obviously the money goes in there. So you're not really worrying about it right now because you know you're using that for your retirement. And what is your overall investment strategy? Do you want to do non-performing loans or you want to do performing loans? It's really up to you. Just depending on your level of experience as an investor and your tolerance level. So then once you've done that, come up with that, you want to go and look at where the inventory is. You have note investment companies that are online that you can kind of Google. You'll see companies come up. You can reach out to these particular companies. They usually have you sign an NDA. And then what they'll do is that as they get notes, they'll put you on their list and then they'll send them out to you. Also, you can do direct mail campaigns. You can go and try to find lists. These 3 websites I have on there they can give you lists of people who have owner financed notes. These are more of what we call the mom and pop people that have properties, inherited them, and took back seller financing or created a note on the property. And you can reach out to these people and see if they're willing to sell. And any three of those websites will help you do that. And then the online trading platforms, again, that's just an online search. There are, specifically where companies, maybe smaller businesses, may buy 10, 15, 20 notes, and then they may have their own sites where they may sell 5, 6, 7, 10 at a time. And you can go on their sites as well and see what type of inventory is out there. So then you have to go through the proper due diligence. What is the asset price? Once you find something, it looks good. It's within your investment ratio, the value ratio. It's kind of fit some of that criteria that we talked about early on. You want to know what the asset price is and try to negotiate at this particular point. And then also during this particular time, you're still doing that due diligence. Any compliance issues, you're trying to find out the payment history. Is it third-party serviced? Was the credit pulled for the borrower? Do they have a recent BPO? So once you've kind of figured out how much you want to spend, and then you've gone onto these sites, or if you reached out to some of these note holders, then you have to kind of do your surface level due diligence to see if this is something that interests you and that you want to continue to go further. Again, you want to confirm that property value. You can do that with the BPO. A lot of times you can go online here. There's a lot of online websites that will give you a good indication of what a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 3-bedroom, 1-bath in a certain area all over the country is worth. And maybe you take 2 or 3 different sites. If one site says this property is worth $70,000, another site says it's worth $80,000, and then another site may say it's worth $75,000. So the property most likely is going to be somewhere between $70,000 to $80,000, and you can kind of figure out how much you want to pay for it based on that information if you feel comfortable with it. If you don't, you can get a BPO. That's a broker's price opinion. There are companies out there that can do those nationwide. It may cost you $75 to $100, maybe $150 at the most. They'll go out and they'll give you a report, and then they'll give you a better indication of what the property is worth. And then 2, what you want to try and find out at this particular point is what the story of the borrower, like what can the note holder tell you about the person that's in there? Have they just been paying on time, consistently, no issues? Have they missed some payments sometimes, but made them up? What can they tell you about this particular person? That's really what you want to find out, because that kind of helps in the negotiation of the price that you want to pay, whether it's a non-performing or performing note. And then also you want to try to find out what the seller wants, needs, and then try to compromise. Now, when you go onto these sites that we mentioned before that trade these, there's probably not going to be a lot of negotiation if they do give you a price, unless you find something out about the property that maybe they didn't know, or something recent that happened. If you send somebody out to the property and say, hey, I see a tarp on the roof. So now we know that there's a roof issue and the value of the property may not be what you originally thought it was. You can kind of go back to some of these online platforms and note investment companies and say, hey, I don't know if you know about this, but looks like, they've had some problems with the exterior of the property, a driveway, sidewalks tore up or something like that. And that's a little bit of a concern. And then sometimes you can negotiate price based on, new information that comes up, or if there's something that comes up when you start looking at the title, if there's some issues there, if things weren't recorded properly or something like that, something that this particular company missed, you can maybe go back and say, hey, I found this through my due diligence here. There's a little bit of an issue. And then they may say, based on that, that they will change the price, lower it, whatever the case may be. When you're dealing with the individual note sellers, the mom and pop, they're not necessarily in the note business, so to speak, but they have created a note. You want to try and ask them, what do they want for their note? Maybe they are looking for 50 grand, because they want to go do something. They want to pay for a college education. They, want to go invest in something else. Whatever the case may be, what you can do is, once you know what they want, there's a lot of ways to figure your offer around what it is that they want to give it to them. And that's when we kind of get into possibly buying partials, or who knows, like you could just find yourself a really good deal based on what they want. If you know that you could, would go up to paying $60,000, $70,000 on a note, but you know that they want 50, you can give them 50, and then you just got yourself a really good deal. So you want to find out what the sellers want, need, and then compromise. So then once you've done that, and you've agreed on certain things, it's time to go to the next level of the due diligence, kind of digging in and making sure that you're trusting but verifying based on all this stuff that you saw. And that sometimes comes down to the property title search. You want to obviously check the taxes and make sure that they've been paid. We want to make sure that you have the proper documentation. If this is owned by a note investment company, you just want to make sure that it was transferred properly to them, because sometimes if things aren't, properly assigned and transferred, you can have an issue with somebody coming back and trying to make a claim. So you just want to follow the chain of title and the assignments and make sure that everything, is in order and looks to be correct. There are companies out there, individuals that will do this for you. If you're, beginning, you can reach out to certain companies that will make sure all of this stuff is in proper order. And obviously you have to factor that into your offer, because that's going to be an outside expense. But you want to make sure that all that stuff is properly done. And then again, thinking about your exit strategy. If this is a performing note, you know that you're pretty much probably just going to continue to make payments. Maybe you could sell it to someone else. Again, if you do a partial, a lot of times you can buy a whole note for $25,000. And let's just say there's 100 payments left. You may find somebody that will buy maybe 85 or 80 payments of that 100 payment note that you bought for the same 25,000, and you still retain the back end of the note. So you can think about, what your exit strategy is going to be. If you're buying something that is non-performing, what are you planning on doing with it? You want to fix it up. You may want to contact somebody in that local area and do a out-of-state flip. If not, maybe you sell it. You think about selling it at a good price to a local investor who can then fix the property up and sell it. Maybe you want to rent it out. Maybe it doesn't need a whole lot of repairs, and you can, have somebody, some boots on the ground, so to speak, and have somebody come in there to fix up the property and put a tenant in there. Or you could do seller financing and create another note. So all these exit strategies you want to kind of go through, and you want to make sure that you have at least 2, if not 3 different exit strategies, whether you're buying a performing note or a non-performing note. Because even with performing notes, sometimes they do go bad. Obviously, we're experiencing some of that stuff now with this COVID, and who knows what could happen in 2021 and going forward. But those notes could obviously turn into non-performing, and you just want to be prepared for that. You always want to be prepared for worst case scenario, and you want to have, like I said, 2 or 3 different exit strategies depending on what could happen. So these are the buying steps. Usually what you do is you make a soft offer contingent on that further due diligence that we talked about. You know, you look at some of the surface stuff. Oh, this looks pretty good. Looks in my price range. I like the way the property is looking. I like, you know, the money that I'm going to get back on an annual basis on this. You know, you kind of take that first step and you say, okay, you know, I want to pay, let's just say $20,000 for this. So you make an offer, but they usually give you about 10 to 14 days. These are note investment companies or the trading platforms. We usually give you about 10 to 14 days, typically, to close the transaction. If you're dealing with uh, like a mom and pop person, you probably have longer time. You probably can say we can get this closed in 30 days. You may not need 30 days, but you can usually get a little bit longer time when you're dealing with a mom and pop because again, they're not in the business, so to speak. What kind of standard for the business for some of these other companies are once you make them an offer, they expect you to fund this particular deal between 10 to 14 days, and they give you that time to do some of that other stuff that we talked about, the document verification, getting a BPO, getting the title ordered, and things of that nature. So you make the soft offer, and then depending on what you find, like I said, you could go back and negotiate a different price, or if everything checks out and comes back good, then you just move forward on what you agreed on. You know, you do a sales agreement. It's a regular purchase agreement and subject to verifying all the information, such as, you know, the property value, the credit, and some of the paperwork and things like that. And most of that stuff can be, again, outsourced, or, you know, you can have your attorney obviously do some of that stuff as well, the people that are handling the closing. So you want to confirm, adjust your offer, or renegotiate it if needed based on verifying all the information. And then pretty much you just fund and you close the deal. I mean, you can close with an attorney if you feel more comfortable doing that. A lot of times you just close with the title company because there's not a lot of documents like it is when you purchase a house. Um, this is really just an assignment. You're just signing like one or two sheets of paper saying that this particular property at this address is now being assigned to you, and you're the new note holder. Um, and you know, that's pretty much it. And then the real important thing is that after you close, at the closing, you know, after that 10 to 14 days and you're ready to set up the closing and now it's closed, you want to make sure that you get this boarded with a servicing company. There are several different mortgage servicing companies out there that you can call. And usually for less than $50 a month, probably somewhere around $35 a month, they'll service receiving the payments and making sure that they get to you. They do, you know, check up on taxes and different things like that, just depending on the company that you choose. But for that type of cost, it makes sense just to get these things boarded with the servicing company so you know that's handled by a professional and you know that the money, they're going to make sure that the money comes to you every month. And then there's also some things that have to go out legally when the notice is signed because you're technically changing banks. So there's some paperwork and things of that nature that the servicing company will send out to the homeowner if they are, you know, still living there, letting them know now that their payment is going to this particular company as opposed to where it was going before. If any, you know, one listener to this ever had a house, they may have received that at one time saying that, hey, now your loan with Wells Fargo is over with Bank of America now. You don't even pay attention to it probably, but they have to send you that information within a certain time frame just to let you know that your payment is now going somewhere else. So that's, you know, pretty much, you know, the buying process from the beginning to the end. It's just, again, you know, just a review, kind of looking at what it is that you want to buy, how much you want to spend, doing some, you know, due diligence. If everything checks out pretty good, you make an offer. You then, within your 10 or 14 days of making that offer, you dig a little bit deeper, you verify information, you make sure everything comes back okay. and within that 10 to 14-day period, you close with the title company and you sign a couple of documents, and now you are a note holder. So it's really not a very difficult long process. It's just more about making sure that you are purchasing right. You're making a smart buy. You're buying it at a good investment to value ratio, um, based on whatever it is that you're buying. So, um, I hope that gives you a pretty decent idea. I don't know if you have any questions. Type them in. I'll stick around for a couple minutes if anybody has a question. Um, but that's pretty much, the process. And, if you'd like to discuss further or want some help through the process, we can work together to do that. We can discuss how things will get broken down and any type of fee or something like that to kind of walk you through this first one. Let's see, what are the primary sources of acquiring notes? Those note investment companies, or there's online trading platforms, as I mentioned, and you can also try and market to individuals who own notes. You can do like a yellow letter campaign or some type of marketing campaign to them, to reach out and to call you. So you can do that. Um, have you used any of the online trading platforms? Do you recommend any? That's a good question. Yes. Let me go in here and yes and yes. Let me see. Online trading platforms. So you have Watermark Trading Exchange. You have Notes Direct. You have Odell Barnes, REO. And you have Revolve Capital Note Investing Company. So those are, some of the ones that I've been, kind of dealing with and would recommend. You can, like I said, do a search, and some other ones will come up, and like I said, you just reach out to them and see if they can send you some inventory and kind of look at what they're offering you and make a decision that's best for yourself. But any of those I do recommend. Also, the Paper Stack is a good one. That's Paper Stack, paper like paper STAC.com. You can go to there as well. What states do you favor for acquiring notes? I would say pretty much the states in the Midwest and Southeast. Those are the lower price band areas. You can find people who have 3-bedroom houses for like 70, 80,000, less than 100,000. I think there's some really good buys there, and especially for the amount of money that you have and want to use. You may be able to buy 2 or 3 of those, just depending on how much money you have. So I would, kind of recommend the Midwest and South. And then, like I said earlier, if you're just starting out, I probably will focus on the non-judicial states, non-judicial foreclosure states, just in case you do run into a problem. You can take that property back within a short amount of time, typically. And then as you purchase some and, you get the hang of it, if you don't mind, a judicial state where it may be a little bit further out in terms of your money being out there, you can do that at that particular time. Is there any other questions? See, you jumped on a little late, Jeffrey, but I can send
Yeah.
the recording to you. That's fine.
Okay.
I'll actually, I guess I'll just post it on the group. in the message section of the group. You should get it directly once I put it in there. Do you
Okay.
form an LLC before acquiring a note? I would. I would, most likely do it in a trust. Actually, I like the trust, the protection of the trust. The LLC, one trust for the notes and stuff that you do buy. So I would do it that way. And but you could set up an LLC as well. But I probably recommend that you're buying it in a trust. Or if you purchase it with the LLC, you can always form a trust that, after you do it that way. So, okay. Joe came prepared today with his questions. I appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, Jeffrey, the process is not difficult at all. It's mostly knowing what it is that you want to spend, understanding your investment to value ratio, making sure that you are, in a good place when you buy, and figuring out, if you want to buy performing, non-performing. That's kind of what we talked about. So, and then, once you set your mind on something and see something that you like, by the time that you make an offer, you have literally about, probably anywhere from 10 to 14 days to kind of close on it. And the closing is very simple because it's just really assignments and stuff. Just, there's just a couple of pieces of paper that assigns it over to you, and now, you start collecting those payments. But you can watch this, at your leisure and get all the information. But the process of it is not difficult at all. What are some red flags when you evaluate a note? Property value. You have to be real cognizant of property value because, again, you have to take in worst case scenario. If you have to take the property back, you don't want to be too, highly leveraged in terms of what you invested in the property and the value of it. Also, the neighborhood. I don't want to be in a war zone. Um, you know, you're probably not going to buy all the time in an A area, but if I can be like in a C plus, C minus, or better area, that makes me a little bit more comfortable. Other red flags. Well, when you're buying a note, red flag for you should be if whoever you're buying it from can't supply proper documentation. If maybe they don't have it themselves, an attorney or somebody should have it that should be able to verify everything that you're buying. So if there's missing documentation, I would be a little cautious about trying to move forward on it. Again, as we talked about, if it's something where it's a chain of title type of issue, you can kind of maybe go back and get that corrected. But if they're not providing the documentation to support what the note is and how it was created and everything like that, that would make me a little bit, well. So those are some of the red flags that we have. Um, so, if anybody, again, if you're thinking about getting into this and, you want to kind of work together, let me know. I can send you a profile, like an investor profile form. We can talk about, what you would feel comfortable, what you want to spend. We can kind of go through the process and, and try to get you into something that you feel comfortable with. There's some opportunities out there right now, and obviously going into 2021, I think that there's going to be, some more opportunities coming out. How much we don't know, but these people are going to have to start paying back their mortgages at some point. And if they don't, we could see a lot of the non-performing stuff hit the market. So you might want to just prepare yourself for the opportunity. I don't know what, everybody's investing in currently or if they are, But again, the reason why we like this so much is that you can kind of get involved for, less money, so to speak. And, if you want to partner with, people that you could do that and then split any proceeds, down the middle and, work a deal that way. So, that's why we, like these. And like I said, we stay in the Midwest to Southeast just because of price point. But, depending on the amount of money you have, you can buy notes for, well into six figures. They have $1 million notes out there as well. So, obviously that takes more capital. And if you have that, then God bless you. But, so it's been about 40 minutes. I'm gonna. I don't see any more questions or anything. You can always reach out through the meetup group if you have a question. You can always send it to me there. My contact information. My cell phone is 973-475-8488. My email is acg@abundantcapitalgroup.com. Social media, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook is all Abundant Capital Group. If you want to connect on Twitter, I'm at Abundant CAP Abundant Cap GRP. And so that's all my contact information. And if you guys think of anything after this and want to talk about something next time, it's not a problem. I think I'm going to probably pull out an asset or two for the next call and just show you, why you might want to invest in this particular asset, the pros and cons of it, and show you some of the price points and different things like that. I think that's what I'm going to do, going into the first of the year, next time we get together. So with that being said, everybody have a good night, be safe, and we'll talk soon. Have a good one.
Okay, same to you.
All right, man.
You too.